Tonight on Y News, President Rodrigo Duterte signs executive order on contractualization. The number of unemployed Filipinos in the country increased by 23.9% in the first quarter of 2018. Y News begins now.
From the UNTV News and Rescue Command Center in Quezon City, this is Y News.
Good evening. President Rodrigo Duterte has signed the executive order on contractualization during Labor Day celebration. The president also urges Congress to revise the labor code. Gladys Tuabi will tell us why.
I remain firm in my commitment to put an end to endo and illegal contractualization.
In front of Cebuanos who attended the Labor Day celebration, President Rodrigo Duterte signed the executive order prohibiting companies in the country from implementing illegal contractualization.
Mura ni akong pinakakaya. Sinagad ko na. Security of tenure refers to the right of employees not to be dismissed or removed without or just an authorized cause and observance of procedural due process consistent with the Constitution and Labor Code as amended.
In line with this, the president urged Congress to revisit and revise the existing labor code to strengthen his directive.
I can only implement, but if there are things that need to be corrected, or things that have to be modified to suit the needs or the demand of time, kaning large tagang gawa sa Pilipinas, na atay gap, kana nahitabo na ang labor code existing na. So you have to amend or correct. Or I recommend the entire revision or revisit the previous law.
The president has also ordered the Department of Labor and Employment to submit to him the list of companies engaged in illegal contracting.
Your days are numbered. I have warned you before, and I'll warn you again. Putlan tamog ulo. Diday baon di mo. Stop endo and illegal contractualization. I will see to it that our laws are strictly enforced. The government will not rest until we end this shameful labor practice.
Gladys Tuabi, UNTV News and Rescue, Cebu.
Meanwhile, different labor groups have slammed the executive order signed by President Rodrigo Duterte that will put an end to illegal contractualization. Mon Hokson will tell us why.
Thousands of rallies have converged at Mendiola for the Labor Day protest. Militant groups stay under the scorching heat of the sun and pouring rain to witness the program. Every group waved their respective flags as they chant in opposition to labor contractualization in the country. It was past 10 a.m. when President Rodrigo Duterte signed an executive order that will put an end to illegal contractualization. But despite the EO, militant groups still oppose the action of the president. Labor groups say the protest will still continue.
Walang naganap na konsultasyon sa aming hanay bago pa pirmahan ni Presidente Duterte itong executive order na ito. Ang isang konkretong manifestasyon niyan ay yung karakarakang pagkansela sa April 16 na dapat ay konsultasyon sa Malacanang.
Some labor groups claim that the EO is useless because it will again go through the legislative process in the House of Representatives. They also believe that the EO signed by the President is not the version of the labor groups.
Tapos na yung papel dito ng Kongreso. Dahil nagawa na ng Kongreso yung kanyang papel doon nung nilikha niya yung Republic Act 6715 na nagsasabing ang gobyerno o sa pamamagitan ng Department of Labor and Employment Secretary na maaari niyang i-prohibit yung contractualization.
Meanwhile, before 3 p.m., militants burned an effigy of the president which they named Duterte Moño. According to group, the effigy symbolizes all the failed promises of the president. Among the issues raised by the labor groups were the proposed 750 pesos national minimum wage, the Boracay closure that resulted in more than 3,000 job losses, jeepney modernization that affected 600,000 jeepney drivers, and the implementation of martial law that allegedly led to the abuse of workers in Mindanao. Based on the tally of the Philippine National Police, an estimated 6,000 rallyists converge in Mendiola. Mon Hocson, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Malacanang Complex is on red alert due to Labor Day protests at Mendiola today. Meanwhile, some Malacanang reporters were temporarily barred from entering the complex. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
The Presidential Security Group in Malacanang Complex has placed the area on heightened security or red alert status today because of Labor Day demonstrations near the vicinity, particularly in Mendiola. Some Malacanang reporters, including UNTV, were temporarily barred from entering the Malacanang Gate at JP Laurel late in the morning. Even the state-run People's Television Network was temporarily stopped from entering. The Presidential Security Group said there was a misunderstanding among the PSG personnel and they asked for an apology.
Hindi naman natin na ina-expect na maraming media papasok. So that's why nag-validate muna kami kanina sa PCO kung maraming nga bang papasok na taga-media. Naniniguro lang tayo na natong building ng Malacanang Complex was secure. So on my part, I'd like to apologize na inconvenience man yung kayo, but it is not the intent to do that.
After clearance from the PSG, the media personnel were immediately allowed to enter the new executive building where the office of the Malacanang reporters is located. PSG clarified that they have no intention of hindering freedom of expression.
There's no issued prohibition na hindi pwedeng makapasok yung taga-media.
It should be noted that the administration has barred Rappler reporter Pia Ranada as well as other reporters of the media organization from entering the palace because the president have lost trust in them and of the alleged fake news they publicized. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacanang.
The number of unemployed Filipinos in the country increased to 23.9% in the first quarter of 2018. Meanwhile, the Department of Labor and Employment opened this Labor Day has offered more than 140,000 jobs for unemployed Filipinos in the country. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
Almost 3,000 applicants have waited in long queues and struggled in the packed Quezon City Hall just to submit their applications at the job fair opened by the Department of Labor and Employment today. More than 140,000 local and overseas jobs are available at the Jobs and Business Fair sites nationwide. Repatriates from Kuwait and returning OFWs are prioritized by DOLE for employment.
Pinauwi na po kami ng Presidente Duterte. Tapos naghahanap po ako ng mas malaking sahod kasi yung sahod doon sa Kuwait masyadong maliit. Tsaka ang hirap doon.
Hindi naman tayo namimili, basta ito ay OFW na bumalik sa Pilipinas na distressed at tinulungan ng Polo OWA sa abroad.
If the jobs does not suit their qualification, TESDA is there to help them, to upgrade their skills or some other trainings.
Meanwhile, based on the survey of the social weather stations from March 23 to 27 this year, the number of unemployed Filipinos has increased by 23.9% or equivalent to 10.9 million Filipinos. This is higher compared to the 15.7% unemployment rate in the country last December 2017. There are three factors which affect the unemployment rate in the Philippines. It consists of those who voluntarily left their old jobs, those who were retrenched or lost their jobs due to economic circumstances beyond their control, and those seeking jobs for the first time. This is the reason why DOLE aims this Labor Day to have a greater number of applicants who are hired on the spot. Christina is just one of the thousands hired on the spot this morning.
Bali matagal na rin po ako nag-stop kasi nga po naging plain housewife na lang po ako tapos nag-tutor na lang po ako. Pero para po sa akin ngayon na may opportunity po na makabalik sa trabaho, brinab ko na po yun ngayon.
Leslie Lomboan, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Several employers gave tips on how to ace a job interview at a Labor Day fair in Manila. Mai Bermudez tells us why.
Based on the Labor Force Survey of the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, released in January this year, an estimated 43 million Filipinos in the country are employed, while 5% of the population are jobless. During the Labor Day job fair in Manila earlier, Tatay Antonino and Marjorie were among the horde of job seekers who braved interviews for a chance to find employment.
Buti na lang may karwas eh. Wala sila, hindi sila hindi sila nag-discriminate sa edad ko. Natanggap ako.
Magtatrabaho muna po ako, then pag nakaipon na po ako ng sarili ko po, mag-aaral po ako.
For some employers, they no longer look at the school the applicant comes from or his age when hiring someone for a position. What's more important is one's experience and personality.
Kailangan confident talaga yung mga applicants natin, no? And they have to prepare their self in terms of the job interview. And then, experience talaga.
Ang hanap talaga namin is yung determination talaga din.
Mas more on attitude kami, yung discipline ng personnel. Kasi yung skills and knowledge, pwede niyang matutunan yun as we train them.
They also have an advice for applicants facing nerve-wracking job interviews.
Yung mga questions about when do you see yourself 5 years from now, dapat makita mo na yung sarili mo is nag-grow. Dapat na makita na employer. Service crew ako ngayon, but probably mag-aaral ako. At since high school grad ako, mag-aaral ako, sir, ng mga bandang until mga 3 years. Pagkatapos ng 3 years ko, sir, baka mag-graduate na ako. At pag-graduate ko, sir, mag-apply ako sa inyo bilang manager niyo.
DOLE will hold more job fairs in the next few days in different parts of the country. Employers advise job seekers to ease their nervousness, be diligent, persevere, and pray during their job hunt. Mai Bermudez, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
A proposed bill that will set the national daily minimum wage has been filed in the lower chamber of Congress. Under the House Bill number 7527, the Secretary of the Department of Labor and Deployment will have the power to adjust the said rate. Once the said proposal has been approved, the current system that allows the Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Board to set the regional minimum wage rates will be nullified. The initial uniform daily minimum wage for agriculture and non-agriculture workers is 600 pesos. This will be applicable to the regular, contractual, or casual employees of the private sectors. Meanwhile, some Filipinos continue to be content with the income that alternative careers provide. Most of them even claim to have achieved success in life. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
Many look down on street vending as a small business that provides very little profit. But on the contrary, a number of street vendors can claim to have achieved success at some point in their lives through these alternative livelihoods. For Nanay Susana, who's been selling hats in the streets of Manila for 3 decades, age has not stopped her from continuing to earn for her family. Her 300 peso daily earnings made it possible for her 2 children to finish their education. She considers this a triumph for her family.
Tingnan mo ako kahit iika-ika talaga nagpupursige maghanap buhay. Mas masarap kasi yung pinaghirapan.
Also, Ricky, a former contractual worker who's been vending for 3 years, wanted to try his chances at alternative business. He did not hesitate and now earns more than from cooking kwek-kwek. Ricky said he earns enough to sustain the daily needs of his family.
Depende po kung may mga okasyon po, kumikita po kami ng 4,000 to 5,000. Kailangan po natin magsikap kasi hirap po umasa tayo sa ibang tao.
Meanwhile, 65-year-old Mang Willie has been a shoe cleaner for more than 4 decades. He works his daily expenses around the 50 pesos he earns from every shoe he cleans.
Nagbuhat doon hanggang sa nagkaroon ako ng pamilya. Ito na yung naghanap buhay ko. Ito na rin ang bumuhay sa mga anak ko.
Even though their livelihood is considered small, the Philippine Statistics Authority still counts them as employed. Last October 2017, the number of employed persons in the country was estimated to be over 41 million. This includes self-employed or with family business. For Aling Susana, Ricky, and Mang Willie, even with the small or big earnings, the patience, strategies, and contentment in life are keys to achieving what they consider success in life. Nel Maribuho, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
The Office of the Solicitor General has asked the Supreme Court to dismiss the petition against the train law. Based on the OSG's 74-page comment, Solicitor General Jose Calida wants the said petition to be dismissed due to procedural defects and lack of merit. He also urges the court not to grant the petitioner's request for a temporary restraining order against the recently enacted tax reform law. Calida argues the government will lose billions of pesos if the implementation of train law is suspended. Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano is pleased with the recent statement made by Kuwait Deputy Foreign Minister Khaled Al-Harala that they are willing to cooperate with the Philippines in responding to the needs of the overseas Filipino workers in the Arab country. The Secretary says this move by Kuwait is a significant development in resolving the diplomatic tension between the two countries. Cayetano notes the friendship between Philippines and Kuwait is strong and can surpass the current misunderstanding. Aside from the price hike on petroleum products, another price increase is also set to be imposed on liquefied petroleum gas or LPG. Based on Petron's advisory, 1 peso and 90 centavos will be added to the price of their LPG per kilogram. This is equivalent to over 20 pesos additional charge per 11 kilogram cylinder of cooking gas. Meanwhile, Petron has also increased the price of its auto LPG by 1 peso and 5 centavos. The said price hike is due to the contract price surge in the world market.
Next on Y News. COMELEC and Elections Watchdog Group offer tips on choosing candidates for barangay elections. The MMDA implements stop-and-go scheme and special lanes in Ortigas for the 51st Asian Development Bank annual meeting. Y News will be right back. I am William Thio. Stay tuned for Angelo Castro III. Good evening.
On Y News tonight, the Liga ng mga Barangay urges barangay officials on PDEA's narco list to surrender. Filipinos beat the heat with creativity and resourcefulness. Good evening. Various protests were also held in the northern part of the country. Robbie De Guzman will tell us why.
Aside from the protests in Mindiola today, laborers in the northern part of the country held their own rallies. In Baguio City, some 300 workers marched to Upper Session Road up to Igurat Park. They insist their opposition to the alleged worsening neoliberalism in the country, which they say is an attack on the livelihood of Filipinos.
Kasalukuyan matindi, no, tumitindi yung kalagayan natin. Kahirapan ang nagre-resulta sa kahirapan sa loob ng 2 taon.
In La Union, around 100 members of various groups from the Ilocos region expressed their grievances to the government alongside the celebration of Labor Day through a protest. They include Alliance of Concerned Teachers in Region 1, which calls for an increase in the minimum wage of teachers. The Alyansa ng Magbubukid, meanwhile, cry for a shortage in farmlands and for a 750 peso daily wage for workers in the fields.
Yung mga magsasaka natin na nagtatrabaho sa bukid, gusto rin natin maitaas yung sweldo nila, yung sahod nila, dahil sa ngayon po hindi po nakakasapat.
The Alyansa Dagiti Umili Tinigalian also joined the protests to stop the construction of a mini hydro power plant in the town of Nagilian due to threats of flooding.
Mga tao apektado, lalo na yung sabi mutubot, na 79 household ang nandun apektado. Lahat yun mawawala pag sakaling tinuloy na yung dam.
Nonetheless, the protests are said to be peaceful overall. Robbie de Guzman, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Liga ng mga barangay urges barangay officials listed in the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency's narco list to surrender. Grace Casin tells us why.
Liga ng mga barangay sa Pilipinas President Attorney Edmond Abisamis admits that there are barangay officials who are involved in illegal drugs, but there are also barangay officials who are honest in their duties. That's why he urges barangay officials included in the PDEA's narco list to surrender to authorities and clear their names. The group, he says, is ready to help concerned barangay officials with legal matters.
Kung talagang kayo ay involved, dapat lang harapin yung katotohanan. Kung hindi kayo involved, huwag kayo magtago. Harapin nyo yung problema at ipakita nyo na hindi kayo guilty.
We tried to get the reaction of Captain Alvin Manialac of Barangay Hulong Duhat and Captain Anthony Velasquez of Barangay Tinajeros in Malabon City. But their colleagues has no information of their whereabouts. Their colleagues denied that the officials were in hiding, but refused to comment on the issue. According to some voters, they will use the narco list as guide for the coming barangay and SK elections.
Iboboto natin yung mga hindi involved sa drugs.
Hindi ko po iboboto. Kasi po, kasama po sila sa mga kasama po. Kasi po pwedeng maapektuhan yung mga nasasakupan nila.
Yung mga ganyang sangkot sa droga, dapat hindi kasi marami nang namamatay eh.
Sino mga iboboto ngayon?
Yung karapat-dapat.
Meanwhile, the Liga ng mga barangay is pushing for a proposed bill in Congress to impose mandatory drug testing to candidates in all positions nationwide. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
More than 1,000 barangay election candidates in the city of Tanawan in Batangas submitted themselves for drug testing. Zonano will tell us why.
Some 1,500 candidates for the barangay elections in Tanawan City, Batangas went out of their way to undergo a drug test to show the public that the candidates in the upcoming polls are drug-free.
Sila yung inaasahan kong tutulong sa akin sa paglaban ko sa illegal drugs. Paano tutulong sa akin yung alam kong involved sa drugs? Kung sino man dyan na manalo at involved naman sa drugs, paano ko maasahan tumulong yun sa akin? Kaya ang panalangin ko, sana yung tatangkilikan ng kanilang barangay yung mga tao na hindi talaga involved o hindi addict o hindi nagtutulak.
Dapat talaga na ang isang kandidato at gustong manungkulan sa barangay ay hindi involved sa drugs sapagkat ikaw ang magiging ehemplo ng iyong barangay, lalo na sa mga kabataan.
The candidates also signed a peace covenant for orderly elections to prove they are true to their word.
Standard kasi ang peace covenant. Standard yan, ginagawa yan sa lahat. Dito talaga lang gusto natin na talagang matahimik ang darating na eleksyon. At lahat yan, lahat ng measures ay ating ina-adapt para magkaroon talagang matahimik na halalan.
The Commission on Elections or COMELEC for its part hopes for peaceful and orderly elections on May 4.
Walang areas of concern as of the moment dito sa Tanawan. Hopefully, manatili hanggang matapos sa eleksyon.
Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
COMELEC and an election watchdog group remind voters to take the upcoming barangay and SK elections seriously. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
Voters have different standards for choosing candidates in the upcoming barangay and sangguniang kabataan elections. We asked some of them in Quezon City.
Yung pipiliin namin talaga, lahat kami rito, talagang yung matulungin talaga na marunong din makisama.
Minsan, pag lumalapit ka sa mga ganyan hindi ka naman tinutulungan. Saka, hindi na ako bumubuti.
Yung sasalba kami dito kasi tatanggalin na kami rito Hindi yung puro lang pangako.
Johnny Cardenas of the watchdog group PPCRV said, voters should consider the lifestyle of a candidate, including his or her family background.
Alamin mo, lifestyle to. Ano ba ito? Masinop ba ito sa kanyang kabuhayan? O ito ba yung magastos? Ang sweldo nito ganito lang tapos ilan ang kotse.
If a candidate is running for re-election, his or her performance in health and sanitation issue should be considered primarily.
Napapabayaan ba ng mga sidewalk tinitirhan ng mga manok? At yung iba nga ginawa na salas nung may-ari ng bahay tapat ginawang mga vulcanizing at parking space.
The public should be vigilant against cheating of candidates, such as overspending during campaign, as this can be used to file complaints against them later even after the election. Cardenas also said voters may use as a guide the list of barangay officials suspected of involvement in the drug trade.
Kung wala siyang badak, ang ibig sabihin wala kang programa para i-control mo yan, baka kasama ka.
COMELEC spokesperson James Jimenez said voters should use the opportunity on election day to voice out their concerns. He adds that a candidate's popularity should not be the primary basis in choosing a leader. Ray Pilayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The DENR has discovered a pipeline that releases foul-smelling water along White Beach in Boracay. The Task Force Boracay believes this is among the sources of water contamination in the island. Grace Casin will tell us why.
A foul-smelling murky water has been coming out of the 6-inch pipeline that was discovered by the local government of Malay at Station 3 of White Beach in Boracay Island. The DENR says the pipeline is likely releasing the water from the sewerage of some establishments on the island.
Kasi kung normal yan, hindi ganun siya kabaho. Kunyari, rainwater lang yan or storm water.
This may also be among the sources of water contamination or the profusion of green algae in Boracay.
Kung tutusin po, nasa high tide line na po siya Ibig sabihin noon, kapag high tide, maaari na siyang makaabot doon. Yung direkta nang nagdi-discharge sa dagat, yung tubo na yon.
The Environment Bureau took a water sample to examine it. The owners of the establishment that are connected to the pipeline may be charged for violation of the Clean Water Act or illegal discharge of untreated water. On the other hand, the Department of Social Welfare and Development continues its distribution of transport assistance to the migrant workers in Boracay today. Under the DSWD's Balik Probinsya program, all those who want to return to their respective provinces will receive transport aid and food allowance. The DSWD explains only one member of each family will be given assistance so that all beneficiaries will be able to avail the said aid. There are almost 17,000 migrant workers in Boracay and only 2,251 have been given their fare. The agency has allotted 500 million pesos for the Boracay closure. The DOLE's distribution of financial assistance will continue until all migrant workers are back in their respective provinces. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority will implement a stop-and-go scheme and special lanes in some portions of Ortigas, Pasig City. This is to give way for the 51st Asian Development Bank annual meeting, expected to be attended by 4,000 delegates from different countries. Joanna will tell us why.
The 51st Asian Development Annual Meeting of Governors is set to begin this Thursday, May 3rd, to be held at the Ortigas Business District in Pasig City. Around 4,000 delegates from different countries composed of finance and development ministers and central bank governors are expected to attend the said meeting. The event aims to tackle various ideas and policies that will help in the growth of the global economy. In line with this, the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority has advised the motorists about the implementation of the stop-and-go scheme in some intersections from EDSA Shangri-La up to ADB office for 3 days starting May 3 to 6. This, they said, is to give way for the convoy of the delegates and their security escorts. MMDA Operations Supervisor Bong Nebrija says they will not impose any road closure on the said dates, but the agency appeals on the motorists to avoid the affected areas and instead take the alternate routes. Meanwhile, on May 5, the MMDA will set up a special lane from St. Francis Street to Bank Driver Street in Ortigas.
So, ibig sabihin, ibabarricade po namin yan para dyan po dadaan yung mga delegates. Coming from Shangri-La going to ADB. Hindi po to total closure. Ibig sabihin, pag nakadaan na po lahat ng mga governors natin para doon sa meeting at nasa meeting na sila, bubuksan po namin to.
Around 1,400 MMDA traffic personnel will also be deployed in these areas to manage traffic. Currently, some delegates have arrived in the country, and this is why some personnel of the MMDA, along with some members of the Philippine National Police, are already positioned in the area.
Para sa bayan po ito. Ngayon, ang inaano lang po natin is makipagtulungan tayo. Kailangan po natin ng kooperasyon, konting sakripisyo on our part. Opo, kailangan po natin mag-adjust ng travel time natin.
Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasig City.
DOLE, TESDA, and the DOST offered livelihood assistance to internally displaced persons in Tarlac. Leslie Dongbowen will tell us why.
Various government agencies joined together to provide livelihood assistance to the native indigenous Etas in Capas, Tarlac. 500 scholarship grants for courses such as carpentry, welding, masonry, and agricultural courses are being offered by the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority or TESDA. The Department of Labor and Employment or DOLE meanwhile provided a 1 million peso integrated livelihood program. The Department of Science or DOST, on the other hand, has provided a solar-powered water system.
So yun sa mga IPs, mostly kasi ang kanilang gusto ipag-aalaga ng hayop, lalo ng kambing. Bibigyan din namin sila nun.
So tuloy na ang training. Dahil may tulugan na, ang training package na lang. So gusto natin na bigyan sila ng pagkakataon na mabigyan ng kaalaman at kasanayan.
After the trainings, jobs await the native Etas as when the new Clark Green City opens. The Etas expressed gratitude and renewed hope for the assistance and skills that the programs provide.
Mas maragol po ng pasalamat namin sa kanila na may puso sila na tumulong sa mga katutubo sa bawat mga area po sa mga bawat na mga teacher po.
Para sa pagbabago ng kabuhayan namin, malaking tulong po.
Leslie Longbowen, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
An Austrian cyclist wins the 25th FSA Bike Festival Garda Trentino in Riva del Garda, Italy. Meanwhile, former Olympians hope to make a year's time journey from Switzerland back home to New Zealand. Victor Cosare will tell us why.
Former Olympians Emma Twigg and Rebecca Wardle and rower Sarah Van Balcom on Monday started a bike ride which they hope will take them from Switzerland back home to New Zealand. The three women had been working at IOC headquarters in Lausanne but have to quit their jobs in order to make the huge journey which they believe will take them a year to complete. IOC President Thomas Bach was present as the trio started their journey and waved them off. The 18,000-kilometer trip will take them across Europe, Turkey, Iran, Central Asia, China, and Southeast Asia before cycling the length of New Zealand. And in cycling, Austria's Daniel Geismar won the 25th FSA Bike Festival Garda Trentino on Sunday in Riva del Garda, Italy. The Centurion Vaude rider finished the 93.93-kilometer race ahead of 2,000 other registered riders in a time of 4 hours, 17 minutes, 7.6 seconds. Geismar claimed the MTB marathon ahead of Texel San Marco rider Samuel Porro of Italy, who crossed the line in second, and fellow Italian Tony Longo from Willer 47C, who rounded off the podium in third. The win coincides with the 10-year anniversary of Geismar's MTB marathon debut, which also took place at Lake Garda. Victor Cosare, UNTV News and Rescue.
Up next on Y News. U.S. President Donald Trump mulls over appropriate site for meeting North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Protesters urge Russia to unblock Telegram app. Stay tuned for William Thio. I'm Angelo Castro III. Good evening.
Here are the headlines on Y News Tonight. Good evening. President Rodrigo Duterte has signed the executive order on contractualization during Labor Day celebration. The president also urges Congress to revise the labor code. Gladys Tuabi will tell us why.
I remain firm in my commitment to put an end to ENDO, an illegal contractualization.
In front of Cebuanos who attended the Labor Day celebration, President Rodrigo Duterte signed the executive order prohibiting companies in the country from implementing illegal contractualization.
Mura ni akong pinakakaya. Sinagad ko na. Security of tenure refers to the right of employees not to be dismissed or removed without or just an authorized cause and observance of procedural due process consistent with the Constitution and Labor Code as amended.
In line with this, the president urged Congress to revisit and revise the existing labor code to strengthen his directive.
I can only implement, but if there are things that need to be corrected or things that have to be modified to suit the needs or the demands of time, kaling kang gawa sa Pilipinas, na atay gap. Kana nahitabo na ang labor code existing na. So you have to amend or correct. Or I recommend the entire revision or revisit the previous law.
The president has also ordered the Department of Labor and Employment to submit to him the list of companies engaged in illegal contracting.
Your days are numbered. I have warned you before, and I'll warn you again. Putlan tamog ulo. Dede baon di mo. Stop ENDO and illegal contractualization. I will see to it that our laws are strictly enforced. The government will not rest until we end the shameful labor practice.
Gladys Tuabi, UNTV News and Rescue, Cebu.
Meanwhile, the number of unemployed Filipinos in the country increased by 23.9% in the first quarter of 2018. Meanwhile, the Department of Labor and Employment opened this Labor Day has offered more than 140,000 jobs for unemployed Filipinos in the country. Leslie Longbowen will tell us why.
Almost 3,000 applicants have waited in long queues and struggled in the packed Quezon City Hall just to submit their applications at the job fair opened by the Department of Labor and Employment today. More than 140,000 local and overseas jobs are available at the Jobs and Business Fair sites nationwide. Repatriates from Kuwait and returning OFWs are prioritized by DOLE for employment.
Pinauwi na po kami ng Presidente Duterte. Tapos naghahanap po ako ng mas malaking sahod kasi yung sahod doon sa Kuwait masyadong maliit. Tsaka ang hirap doon.
Hindi naman tayo namimili, basta ito ay OFW na bumalik sa Pilipinas na distressed at tinulungan ng Polo OWA sa abroad.
If the jobs does not suit their qualification, TESDA is there to help them, to upgrade their skills or some other trainings.
Meanwhile, based on the survey of the social weather stations from March 23 to 27 this year, the number of unemployed Filipinos has increased by 23.9% or equivalent to 10.9 million Filipinos. This is higher compared to the 15.7 unemployment rate in the country last December 2017. There are three factors which affect the unemployment rate in the Philippines. It consists of those who voluntarily left their old jobs, those who were retrenched or lost their jobs due to economic circumstances beyond their control, and those seeking jobs for the first time. This is the reason why DOLE aims this Labor Day to have a greater number of applicants who are hired on the spot. Christina is just one of the thousands hired on the spot this morning.
Bali matagal na rin po ako nag-stop kasi nga po naging plain housewife na lang po ako tapos nag-tutor na lang po ako. Pero para po sa akin ngayon na may opportunity po na makabalik sa trabaho, brinab ko na po yun ngayon.
Leslie Lomboan, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Liga ng mga barangay urges barangay officials listed in the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency's narco list to surrender. Grace Casin tells us why.
Liga ng mga barangay sa Pilipinas President Attorney Edmon Abisamis admits that there are barangay officials who are involved in illegal drugs, but there are also barangay officials who are honest in their duties. That's why he urges barangay officials included in the PDEA's narco list to surrender to authorities and clear their names. The group, he says, is ready to help concerned barangay officials with legal matters.
Kung talagang kayo ay involved, dapat lang harapin yung katotohanan. Kung hindi kayo involved, huwag kayo magtago. Harapin nyo yung problema at ipakita nyo na hindi kayo guilty.
We tried to get the reaction of Captain Alvin Manialak of Barangay Hulong Duhat and Captain Anthony Velasquez of Barangay Tinajeros in Malabon City. But their colleagues has no information of their whereabouts. Their colleagues denied that the officials were in hiding, but refused to comment on the issue. According to some voters, they will use the narco list as guide for the coming barangay and SK elections.
Iboboto natin yung mga hindi involved sa drugs.
Hindi ko po iboboto. Kasi po, kasama po sila sa mga kasama ko. Kasi po pwedeng maapektuhan yung mga nasasakupan nila.
Yung mga ganyang sangkot sa droga, dapat hindi kasi marami nang namamatay eh.
Sino mga iboboto mo?
Yung karapat-dapat.
Meanwhile, the Liga ng mga barangay is pushing for a proposed bill in Congress to impose mandatory drug testing to candidates in all positions nationwide. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The DENR has discovered a pipeline that releases foul-smelling water along the White Beach in Boracay. The Task Force Boracay believes this is among the sources of water contamination on the island. Grace Casin is back to tell us why.
A foul-smelling murky water has been coming out of the 6-inch pipeline that was discovered by the local government of Malay at Station 3 of White Beach in Boracay Island. The DENR says the pipeline is likely releasing the water from the sewerage of some establishments on the island.
Kasi kung normal yan, hindi ganun siya kabaho. Kunyari, rainwater lang yan or storm water.
This may also be among the sources of water contamination or the profusion of green algae in Boracay.
Kung tutusin po, nasa high tide line na po siya eh. Ibig sabihin noon, kapag high tide, maaari na siyang makaabot doon. Yung direkta nang nagdi-discharge sa dagat, yung tubo na yon.
The Environment Bureau took a water sample to examine it. The owners of the establishment that are connected to the pipeline may be charged for violation of the Clean Water Act or illegal discharge of untreated water. On the other hand, the Department of Social Welfare and Development continues its distribution of transport assistance to the migrant workers in Boracay today. Under the DSWD's Balik Probinsya program, all those who want to return to their respective provinces will receive transport aid and food allowance. The DSWD explains only one member of each family will be given assistance so that all beneficiaries will be able to avail the said aid. There are almost 17,000 migrant workers in Boracay and only 2,251 have been given their fare. The agency has allotted 500 million pesos for the Boracay closure. The Dole's distribution of financial assistance will continue until all migrant workers are back in their respective provinces. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
And for the news abroad, here's Eric Ferrer live from Uijeongbu in South Korea. Good evening, Eric.
Good evening, Will. U.S. President Donald Trump mulls over appropriate site for meeting North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. This report tells us why. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Monday that the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea is a potential site for his planned summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Trump suggested that the Peace House in the DMZ, where Kim met South Korean President Moon Jae-in last week, is a possible venue.
There's something that I like about it because you're there. You're actually there, where if things work out, there's a great celebration to be had on the site, not in a third-party country.
However, some U.S. officials have argued that having the summit in the DMZ would present the unwelcome appearance of Trump traveling to Kim instead of the two of them meeting at a neutral site. Trump also stated that they are looking at various other countries and Singapore is one of the potential sites for the summit. The date for the meeting still remains to be established, but Trump wants to hold it by late May or early June.
Are you still confident the summit will happen? Is there anything that...
Oh, yeah, I think the summit is going to happen. And personally, I think it's going to be a success, but we'll see. I will say this. If it's not a success, you've got to get rid of the nuclear weapons. If it's not a success, I will respectfully leave. It's very simple.
Many U.S. officials doubt that Kim will actually agree to give up nuclear weapons after working so long to develop them. But Trump says he sees some hopeful signs.
You know, I often say, who knows? Who knows? Maybe a lot of things change. But Kim Jong-un, who has been very open and very straightforward so far, I can only say again so far, but he's talking about getting rid of the site, which was their big site. He's talking about no research, no launching of ballistic missiles, no nuclear testing. And he has lived up to that for a long period of time, longer period of time than anybody has seen.
Eric Ferrer, UNTV News and Rescue, South Korea. In Russia, thousands of people marched through Moscow on Monday, throwing paper planes and calling for authorities to unblock the popular Telegram instant messaging app. Protesters chanted slogans against President Vladimir Putin as they launched the planes, a reference to the app's logo. Russia began blocking the Telegram on April 16 after the app refused to comply with a court order to grant state security services access to its users' encrypted messages. Russia's FSB, Federal Security Service, has said it needs access to some of those messages for its work. That includes guarding against militant attacks. In the process of blocking the app, state watchdog Roskomnadzor also cut off access to a slew of their other websites. Armenian opposition leader Nikol Pashinyan became the sole candidate for the post of interim prime minister on Monday, April 30, after a key deadline passed without other candidates registering. Whether or not he gets the job, left open by the resignation of longtime leader Sargsyan after 2 weeks of anti-government protest, depends on a parliamentary vote. Pashinyan has received the support of all opposition parties in parliament, who holds 47 seats in the 105-seat legislature, but he will require a majority to win. Anti-government demonstrations driven by public anger over perceived political cronyism and corruption in the South Caucasian former Soviet Republic led to Sargsyan's resignation a week ago. Vatican Treasurer George Pell must face trial on charges of historical sexual offenses. An Australian court ruled on Tuesday, May 1, 2018, making him the most senior Catholic official to be tried on such allegation. Magistrate Belinda Wallington handed down her decision that Pell's case will proceed to trial in a Melbourne court following month-long pre-trial hearing. In court, Pell pleaded not guilty in a firm, loud voice. In delivering her ruling, Wallington dismissed some of the charges leveled against Pell in the pre-trial hearing, but said allegations of offenses at a pool and at a church in Victoria State will be heard. She provided no detail on the date of the trial. Pell, 76, is on a leave of absence from his role as economy minister to Pope Francis. And in the U.S., President Donald Trump welcomed Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari to the White House on Monday, April 30. The meetings are expected to focus on promoting economic growth and reforms, fighting terrorism and other threats to peace and security, and building on Nigeria's role as a democratic leader in the region. According to a statement from White House spokeswoman Sarah Sanders, Buhari, a 75-year-old former military ruler who took office in 2015, has announced that he will seek a second term in election next year. And that's the latest from other parts of the globe. Back to you, Will.
Thank you very much, Eric Ferrer, live from Uijeongbu in South Korea. Filipinos are beating the heat with creativity and resourcefulness. Leslie Longboen tells us why.
Pag-asa's records show heat indices, or the temperature people feel, already reached 41 to 54 degrees Celsius in some areas of the country. That's why Filipinos make ways to stay cool this hot season. Jessa Cueva Garcia shared a very creative idea for those who don't have air conditioning units. With the use of styro box, tubes, electric fan, and ice, and you now have an improvised aircon. And if you don't have time to go to the beach, your young ones may enjoy themselves through do-it-yourself swimming pools. To make the experience complete, why not improvise a shower? These are just some of the ways that show how creative and resourceful Filipinos are to beat the heat. Remain cool to survive and enjoy the season. Leslie Longboan, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Those are the reasons behind the news, May 1st, 2018. I'm William Thio, and because we need to know, we will always ask why. Thank you for watching Y News.